the Hermit and Wheel of Fortune tarot cards. You can see them on the screen right now. And we will move along. Let's see, advance to the next slide. There we go. So, key 9, the Hermit. We have just left the card called Strength, key number 8. If you recall, that had a young lady holding a lion very calmly. And that card basically showed control over the beast of the animal nature in all of us. So that being established, here we are at the Hermit's card and moving towards the summit of attainment. So it's very necessary to get a little control over ourselves before we can move on to the summit. The Hermit stands in darkness, and our intellect, this means our intellect cannot comprehend what stands behind our personality. It represents the hidden, interior, subconscious field of the divine operation. His climb is complete. He no longer needs his staff, so he holds it in his left hand. In his right hand, he holds the lantern. The purity of the Hermit is signified by the fact that he wears wears an undergarment of white, signifying purity, the primal light, and pure spirit. He has a long white beard, which means he is considered the ancient one. To us, he's an abstraction, cold and far removed from the warmth of everyday life. The lantern that he holds in his right hand, he carries, is actually within him. It's signified by him holding it up. He holds it up for the benefit of those who follow him. It shows the way as they toil towards him up the mountain. He's traveled this path before, so he's turned around and now lights the way for others. He is very aware of the difficulties that they will encounter, so he tries to make it easier for them by shining his light for them. Within the lantern is the six-pointed golden star. The lantern carries a six-pointed golden star, which hints at the zodiacal sign Virgo, the sixth sign. The two interlaced triangles symbolize union. The star has 9 rays, the number of the key. So you can count them. There are 5 on the left and 4 on the right. 9 also means the end of a numerical cycle. Here we have the lightning flash. The ray from the Hermit's lantern strikes the tower. Key 16 that you're looking at right now is the key below the Hermit in the Tarot Tableau. So above the Hermit is the High Priestess, and then below it is the Tower. Therefore, through right recollection, which is through the High Priestess, which is memory, we come to know the one identity, which is key 9, the Hermit, and that knowledge overthrows all structures of separative illusion, which is key 16, the Tower. So I've just gone over one of the columns of the Tarot Tableau and how it works in a very simple form. Here we have the Fool and the Hermit. The Hermit is actually the Fool. After the Fool's descent into the valley of manifestation, he returns to the heights. The Fool is spirit in its aspect of eternal youth. The Hermit is the same spirit in its aspect of all-embracing experience. They are the same. Both youth and age are but appearances of the no thing, of that which is within us. The Hermit's blue hood. His blue hood forms the letter Yod. Yod is the foundation of every letter in the ancient Chaldean alphabet. It was also known later as the Hebrew alphabet. It looks like a flame. Therefore, the Hebrew alphabet has been known to be called the flame alphabet. The letter Yod is associated with will. As the Ancient of Days, or one identity, the Hermit is the willpower of the universe. It has no support other than itself. He who stands alone symbolizes adaptation. He cannot share his knowledge with those who do not comprehend it. This is something we can use in our lives and understand, and something in the Bible that said, don't throw your pearls before swine. It wasn't really something negative. It's just they don't understand, and you can keep talking till you're blue in the face, and they still won't understand. People will progress, but they progress on their own from inside out. So teach from where people are at. Don't give them more than that. Everyone needs to digest this as they move along the path. So he shines the light, but you notice he's not talking. He's just shining the light so people can see. So always keep this in mind. Another term for sharing things that people don't comprehend is proselytizing. If you've ever, which we don't see too often these days, but 30, 40 years ago, you would see someone standing on a street corner with a Bible in their hand, holding it up high, and going, you're all going to hell if you don't follow the Bible, and they would go blah, blah, blah. Drove everybody nuts on the street corner. There was always somebody who wanted to talk to them or tell them to go away. So we don't proselytize. He who stands alone symbolizes adaptation. It just means that as you move along the path, you will be alone. And sharing the information that you're getting from within that others may not understand is not necessarily something you want to do just in order to have friends. You want to share only when someone is receptive. The Hebrew Yod. Yod is a Hebrew noun meaning the hand of man. This ties in with the ancient doctrine. The primary and fundamental reality of the universe is identical with the power that is expressed in the handiwork of human beings. The upper point represents primal will. The rest is assigned to the aspect of the life power named wisdom. The hand of man is the seat of highly organized centers of touch. The sense of touch is assigned to the letter Yod. That's very interesting, to touch something. If you think about it, sometimes you say, I feel what you're saying, because you've touched that person. And it's not just a physical touch, but it's in spirit, in mind. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So Virgo is attributed to the letter Yod, and thus to this key 9. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. The power symbolized by key 1, the magician, is Mercury. It's the self-conscious mind. Mercury has its highest mode of expression in Virgo. This is going to take us to a very interesting place. Mercury represents the life power working at the self-conscious level through the brain. So once again, we're talking about the magician. The physiological field of Mercury's brain manifestation is the frontal lobe of the brain. You can see the little red part in this picture. Here are the controls that determine bodily responses. Remember, the energy from the sun comes through our transmitter, the brain, and then goes out to the rest of the body. The most important field of expression in which the controls exerted through the frontal lobe are manifested in the field that astrology assigns to Virgo. That's an interesting thing. Mercury has its highest mode of expression in Virgo. So what does that really mean in our lives? Aha! The field of expression assigned to Virgo. It's the abdominal region, especially the upper part of the small intestine. Food is assimilated here. Then it's sent to the various organs that transmute it into bone, tissue, and all other parts of our body. During intestinal digestion, food is transformed into an oily, milky substance called chyle. You probably all know about this. We hear about microbiotics and, eat yogurt. We've got to get all these little goodies into our intestines so it all is balanced and happy. So this substance called chyle is called virgin's milk by the alchemists. This opens up a whole area I didn't fully cover in this card because it's a little long, but virgin's milk, and you'll see why. From this, the lacteals in the intestines absorb nourishment for the bloodstream. The building of a finer, regenerated vehicle of personality. Under proper self-conscious direction, the finer forces always present in the child are liberated into the bloodstream. These forces energize the brain centers that function in the experience called illumination. That sounds very strange. I mean, this has to be taken right down into the physical illumination. It's not sort of out there in heaven somewhere. This experience is that of conscious union with the one identity. Remember, we're still on the Hermit card. Choose carefully what you eat. We control the activities of the assimilative portion of the intestinal tract. So therefore, carefully choose what you eat. Utilize the law of suggestion to bring about the release of the subtle forces in child. But actually, this seldom happens unless you know of the possibility that it will happen. You understand to some degree how much release of the subtle force will bring about illumination. And you take yourself in hand for the sake of accomplishing the great work. It is said that God chooses the weak things of the world to confound the wise. Illumination, depending upon the release in the bloodstream of a subtle force that is generated in the intestinal tract, is not likely to arouse any feelings of pseudo-asceticism. But the regenerated vehicle of personality is made possible by changes in the bloodstream. I have a book in front of me by Basil Valentine, his Triumphant Chariot of Anatomy. I didn't include this, but this has been written in 1678, and he talks about this. And he's considered a very important alchemist in his day. We're talking 1678. Okay, so science is catching up with alchemy. This is great. So in 2012, Brainmaker, the power of gut microbes to heal and protect your brain for life, was published. The author is David Perlmutter. He's a doctor, a neurologist, and has been for the last 30 years. He links the health of your gut, the small intestines, to the health of your brain. I had the pleasure of having dinner with him at a function at the Buck Institute in Novato, California, in the summer of 2015. I went there with a dear friend, and he explained very succinctly how the brain and the gut are related, and more detail is found in his book, which, if you wish to carefully choose what you eat, you may wish to find out what he and researchers like him have discovered. So this is considered cutting edge in the world of science. In the world of alchemy, well, it's been there a long time, hundreds and hundreds of years. It's even in the tarot cards. Interesting. The supreme will. The Hermit is the supreme will. He is the cosmic, eternal urge to freedom. Union with that will. This is the highest result of the operation of the law, that subconsciousness responds to the initiative and to the suggestions of consciousness, the conscious mind. This is a typo here. It shouldn't say of self-consciousness. It should say of consciousness. Self-consciousness. Sorry, this isn't a typo. I've been doing this too long. Only through subconscious body transforming powers will our bodies undergo the subtle changes required to become fit vehicles for union with the Supreme Spirit. This is a transformation that many people don't think about. They think, okay, I'm going to become illumined, I'm going to go to the spirit world. Okay, that's not right. It's going to be that your body will raise up to the fact that you live there, here, now. It's not over there, out in space somewhere. So we are transforming our bodies so that they can hold the Supreme Spirit in full consciousness. So I picked up something from Paul Foster Case that I really like, and I'd like to share it with you. And it's called How to Speak Directly to the Subconscious Mind. I think I've brought this up before to some friends, but this was given by Paul Foster Case to his students to help them work with the subconscious mind. He did this in the 1930s. So this is almost 100 years ago. Speak directly to your subconsciousness, as if to another person, and say, henceforth, you are free from the influence of any other misinterpretations of appearances that may result from the inaccurate operation of my conscious thinking. You will refuse to accept any such misinterpretations, and you will be guided by the influx of superconscious life and wisdom. Under this influence, you will set my body in perfect order. Through this wisdom, you will guide me right in all my affairs. And by the reflection of this boundless power into my personality, you will give me ability and strength to accomplish all that I have to do. If you repeat this every morning, one of the things about the subconscious mind, as we discovered when we were looking at the Empress card and the High Priestess, is that it's the cards of memory and repeating. And the Empress card, we learned the subconscious mind just loves to repeat and repeat and repeat. It doesn't mean the basis of that repetition is the truth. It's whatever observation the conscious mind has made, and it could be false, and then you start to live it. So this is sort of like a stopgap. It's like putting a fence down and going, well, I wasn't right about that. Now how do I stop the subconscious mind from replicating it in my life continuously? So this little saying may be helpful if you said it in the morning or in the evening, and just say, forget everything I told you to do yesterday. We're starting fresh today, and we're going to start with the truth today. So this is just something to help out. So now we're going to move on to the Wheel of Fortune. I was thinking about this morning. This is an amazing card. It's got quite a number of symbols on it, but it is quite, it's what I call the get a grip card. Get a grip on your life. And you will see what I mean as we go through it. The Wheel of Fortune, Key 10, is a detailed explanation of the law of rotation. Key 10 will explain this law and how to use it in your everyday life. You will need a full comprehension of this law. It is not an intellectual exercise. It must become a true realization in order to grasp its full implications. It will give you power over every disease, power over every misfortune, power over every semblance of restriction. That's a tall order. So we'll begin by looking at the number 10. It's a combination of 0 and 1. 0 is a symbol of the one force. 1 is a symbol of the point wherein the one force concentrates itself. At this point, the one force becomes active. This is the point where motion begins. The initial whirling motion. Visualize an image of the initial whirling motion in the vast expanse of limitless light. The law of rotation is the very embodiment of the principles of growth, evolution and involution, action and reaction, the reciprocal relationship between every pair of opposites. It contains the secret of the manifested universe. We are not dealing here with the incomprehensible absolute. All of what we're going to be talking about on this card, you can get a handle on, you can get a grip on. It's something that's finite. We're not talking about something that you couldn't comprehend. So this is why we have the wheel. We'll discuss the Hebrew letter Kaf. In the lower right-hand corner of the card sits the letter. It represents a hand in the act of grasping. Close your fist and turn it with the thumb toward you. Go ahead and do that. Note how the forefinger and thumb suggest a spiral. The activity of the one source is spiral in nature, not just circular. Only in this manner is growth possible. Only does evolution come about. The motion returns to the starting point, true, but always on a higher plane than where it began. Remember the Hermit card? The Fool goes into manifestation, has his experiences, and returns as the Hermit. But he's a little further along the path, a little higher up. He's developed a finer vehicle, a finer personality for the light to shine through. And another word for this would be epigenesis. You go around, but you always come back at a little higher point. So the things you learn will take you to the higher point. I had a teacher that told me it's like solving a problem, a 4th grade problem, with a 3rd grade education. You're able to do it. You get the whole education, and then you just get this spark, and you're able to solve a problem. It just comes to you. So that's the epigenesis. That's the manner of evolution and growth. The law of the finite. The basic idea by Kaf is comprehension or grasp. So that's this letter. To grasp is to hold, to comprehend, to master. We are dealing with a law of the finite, which is within our mental grasp. So this shouldn't be beyond any of you. You should be able to get a handle on it. What we are considering now is the series of manifestations, which is finite, however immense it may be, i.e., the universe. Therefore, the principle of rotation that is at work in the entire series is intelligible. We can grasp it. It can be comprehended. This law is best represented by a wheel. So all of this is in the symbology of the card to give you an idea that this is possible for you to comprehend, and therefore, when you grasp something and comprehend it and master it, what can be grasped mentally is intelligible, clear, explicit, positive, definite, precise. Wealth and poverty are the pair of opposites attributed to the double letter Kaf. These are extremes of property, the external signs of one's grasp of circumstances. So that's just one pair of doubles. Now we come to the planet Jupiter. And in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little sign for Jupiter, way down there by the K and the hand. Above it is right there in the bottom, where it says Wheel of Fortune, is the symbol Jupiter. Intelligence of reconciliation, or rewarding intelligence of those who seek. The Kabbalistic name for the mode of consciousness attributed to the letter Kaf. That's the Kabbalistic name. That's that first line. Conciliation is the adjustment of differences, the establishment of harmony and order. Thus is distinctly Jupiterian. This mode of consciousness is what brings perception of the law, which fulfills the promise, seek and ye shall find. The law here shown is that which reconciles apparent differences. The greater fortune. Jupiter is called in astrology the greater fortune. In mythology, Jupiter is ruler of all the gods. Through their agency, he is the ruler of the destinies of man. By this symbolism, it means that it is possible to comprehend the underlying law of human destiny. You're beginning to catch on that there's a method of madness to all of this. That we can, once you comprehend something, you can get a handle on it. Jupiter is the planet exalted in the sign Cancer. See key 7, the chariot. The wheels on which the chariot rolls represent the law of rotation in that key. So now the Wheel of Fortune. The title of key 10 combines the ideas of rotation, cyclicity, sequence, whirling motion, simultaneous ascent and descent, which would be also known as evolution and involution, and so on, with the ideas of fortune, destiny, chance, fate, necessity, probability, etc. Occult teaching emphatically asserts that what seems to be chance, whether absence of purpose or absence of design, is really the working of unalterable law. The rotation of circumstances appears to be accidental, but is not really so. You've got to get an understanding of this before you can make it work for you. So it's repeated over and over in all the symbols. It's continuously repeated. The affairs of men and nations. The affairs of men and those of nations have a rhythm, a regularity, a steadiness of beat, which enables the wise to read the meaning of the present in the history of the past. It makes it possible to forecast the events of the future from close examination of present tendencies. The wheel is a symbol of progress, advancement, improvement. The wheel represents the march of culture, civilization, and amelioration, which would be an improvement of these things. In occultism, this is called the great work. The fixed signs of the zodiac. So if you go back here to the previous key, take a look at the 4 characters. You have man, the eagle, the bull, and the lion. Now we'll discuss them. The fixed signs of the zodiac. The design of this card is such that at the corners of the card, seated in clouds, are representatives of the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. And usually the emphasis of something in clouds or behind clouds means most people can't see it. The bull is Taurus. The lion represents in the zodiac Leo, the eagle to Scorpio, and the man to Aquarius. And we have the little fixed signs over there on the right, they're symbols. The numbers of these signs in the zodiacal series are 2, 5, 8, and 11. They add to 26, the number of Yod-He-Vah-He. So remember that IHVH, or Yod-He-Vah-He, is on the neckline of the interior white garment of the Fool. So now we have it all the way around the edges of the card in symbols. The I is represented by the lion. The first H by the eagle. The V, Vav, by the man. And the final H, He, by the bull. Thus, the living creatures typify the fixed, eternal modes of the one reality. The one reality remains permanent in contrast to the flux and reflux symbolized by the turning wheel. That which was, is, and shall be remains ever the same in itself. The whole sequence and rotation of events goes on within it. So that's the symbology of having these 4 characters around the corners. Eternity doesn't change. They're fixed. The wheel. Now let's see what the wheel has to say for itself. The wheel is the symbol of the whole cycle of cosmic expression. It is also an emblem of any particular series of events. So it can be a huge event or a very minute event in your life. It could be just when you make your coffee this morning and get on with your day. So it's an emblem of events and what happens and how they're created. Its center, or pivot, is the archetypal world. So that's just the very dot right there in the center. The inner circle is the creative world. The inner circle is just where the spokes are. The middle circle is the formative world. That's where you begin to see some symbols. The outer circle is the material world. And there you have the symbols Yod, He, Vav, He, and you have Taro. The 8 spokes are like the 8-pointed star in key 17, the star. And we will cover that in the future when we get that far. They represent the universal radiant energy. So those are the stars. This central circle is the same as the symbol of the life breath, 10 times repeated on the robe of the Fool. So we're only talking about the circle that includes the dot and the first part of just spokes. There's no symbols in that. And that, if you recall, on the robe of the Fool, completely covers him and protects him. Remember, it's the protection of the universe. The alchemical symbols sulfur, salt, and mercury. On the spokes of the wheel, in the circle, representative of the formative world, are the alchemical symbols of mercury, that's above, the top, sulfur to the right, and salt to the left. Salt is that circle with just the line through it. Sulfur on the right is a triangle above a cross. Mercury above at the top is the moon symbol above a circle above a cross. These correspond to the 3 gunas of yoga philosophy. And we've talked about this in the past, that the yoga philosophy and the alchemists and the tarot philosophy are identical. Terms are different, but all the teachings are the same. So the gunas of yoga philosophy have sattva is mercury, rajas is sulfur, and tamas is salt. At the bottom of the same circle, the symbols in it, is the alchemical symbol for dissolution. This symbol is identical with the astrological symbol for Aquarius. So the formative world, where you create form, before the manifestation. So basically, we're looking at, I'm going to go back one. The archetypal world would be where you get an idea, like to sit on something. The creative world would be, okay, there's chairs and rocks and logs and all kinds of things we can use to sit on. The formative world would be, I'm going to come up with something more specific than that. I'm going to come up with a chair to sit at my desk. And the material world would be actually creating the chair. You got it. There's the chair. But every manifestation goes through these 4 worlds. The archetypal, the creative, the formative, and then it's manifested. So this is to remind you that we think in pictures. We have to have a clear understanding of what we want to create, or the material world gets to be pretty messy. And it helps you to understand how to create your own world. Where are all these ideas from? Where are all these problems coming from? Well, what are you thinking about in the archetypal world? So here we continue with sulfur, salt, and mercury. And as I said, at the bottom of the same circle is the archetypal symbol for dissolution. This symbol is identical with the astrological symbol for Aquarius. You see the little wavy lines at the bottom. These symbols stand for Mercury is consciousness, there at the top. Sulfur is passion and activity. Salt is ignorance and inertia. Dissolution is said to be the fundamental process of the great work. If you have an idea that if you toss things into water, they dissolve in water. You can get mud, you can get all kinds of things, but they dissolve in water. And you've got consciousness, passion, activity, ignorance, and inertia. All of these elements are necessary for manifestation. Inertia protects. It's always interesting to think that if you went to have a transfusion of blood at the hospital and they gave you a blood type that's not yours, it could kill you. And that's the body protecting itself from outside influence in the blood, through the bloodstream. And that's the inertia. That's like, this is fixed. You have to give me the same blood type or the whole kit and caboodle is gone. So there are certain things of inertia that are helpful. And sometimes we say ignorance is bliss. If I had known that, I would never have done that. I would have never have done this other thing. But yet I have learned so much because of it. So keep your mind open at all times. And dissolution is said to be the fundamental process of the great work. Keep that in mind. So the yellow serpent. A yellow serpent descends on the left side of the wheel. There's a little guy coming down. Its wavy motion suggests vibration. Its color yellow is assigned to light. We could go back to the discussion of all the different colors, what they each mean. And yellow is assigned to light. And it's also assigned to the planet Mercury, which is key 1, the magician. And if you recall in key 1, the magician, the background is yellow. So is the background of the Fool. It's also assigned to the sign Leo, which is key 8, strength. And again, the background of that card, key 8, is yellow. So there's an interrelationship going on here about these cards. We won't get into much depth because there's tons of information in this card just for this particular webinar. Its descent, the yellow serpent's descent, represents the involution of the cosmic radiant energy into the conditions of name and form. It is also the force which descends through the magician to his garden. This force bears the message or impulse of the cosmic will. Hermanubis, or Hermes Anubis. This is the jackal-headed Egyptian god. It's the little red character there on the right side of the wheel. He rises on the right side of the wheel. He represents the evolution of consciousness from lower to higher forms. He has a human body with a jackal's head. This shows that humanity as a whole has not risen above the intellectual level. His ears rise above the horizontal diameter of the wheel. This shows that through interior hearing, intuition, key 5, the teacher, if you recall, the Hierophant, man is beginning to gain some knowledge of this cycle of evolution. His red color typifies desire and activity. He symbolizes the average level of our present human development of consciousness. Beyond and above him is a segment of the wheel which only a few have traversed. I mean, we've visited the Anubis on prior cards from time to time. And he's also used for symbolizing discrimination because of his sense of smell. You notice his long nose. The jackal in Egypt had an incredible sense of smell. So they said that he, when they used him in symbology, that smell was considered a point of discrimination. You know, that smells bad. Oh, you smell great. That kind of idea of smell. So the yod on the wheel, okay? Note the segment of the wheel between Hermanibus and the Sphinx. It contains the letter yod, key 9, the Hermit, which we just covered. That which completes the unfoldment of man and develops powers beyond his intellectual level of consciousness is an organic change. It's amazing how we keep coming back to this organic change. To effect this change is to accomplish the great work. The letter yod is a symbol of that accomplishment. For the perfection of the work is an identification of the personal self, the ego, seated in the heart, with the Ancient of Days, represented by key 9, the Hermit. You have to get that this organic change is the raising of your consciousness from the senses, the physical senses, to the spiritual senses, of which we have the same number of senses. But you have to open them, and you can't open them intellectually. You can only open them through your heart. You can only open them from serving others, from being kind and thoughtful. It's a way of conducting your life that creates this organic change. And it is an organic change, or you could not take your personality and be fully aware of the self and God being within you. The Sphinx. The Sphinx represents the perfection of this identification with the Ancient of Days. She typifies the real self of man behind the veil of personality. She carries a sword, a weapon corresponding to the formative world, to the element air, to the letter Zain, key 6, the lovers. So once again, the concept of description comes in, because a sword always means that. Her sword represents conquest of the formative world, the world of subtle forces of the life breath. That conquest is effected by right discrimination. It's kind of like if you're cooking and you want to go test to see if the flame's hot, you don't stick your hand in it. Oh, yeah, that's hot, and I've burned my hand. You use your eyes, you look, you go, okay, I see energy rising. You discriminate so that you don't destroy your body. The Sphinx and the inner senses. The self is known by the unfoldment of the inner senses corresponding to the outer ones. Yes, these inner senses exist. Most people would like to say no. Those are the people that only have their ears at the horizon of the sphere, of the Wheel of Fortune. When this unfoldment comes, we become aware of the one thing which transcends personality. The Sphinx remains motionless while the wheel turns. Its blue color relates it to memory, the basic function of subconsciousness. We keep coming up with, you gotta deal with the subconscious mind to create. This emphasizes the idea that the highest self-knowledge is really self-recollection. You just have to remember yourself, and you're there. All the rest is foolishness and getting you there. The Sphinx and key 8, strength. Key 8, as you recall, was the woman holding the red lion. The Sphinx combines the two principal elements in the symbolism of key 8, strength. And remember, the woman in key 8 was very relaxed about the whole thing. She has a woman's head and breasts combined with the body of a male lion. She is the union of male and female powers. Again, dissolution, things combined into one. She is the perfect blending of forces that at lower levels of perception seemed to be opposed. And here we are, coming to the end. So the letters Tarot, T-A-R-O, on the wheel. This was kind of fun to know about this. By transposition, the letters of Tarot in the outer wheel may be arranged to make the following 5 words: Rota, Tarot, Orat, Torah, Ator. And this means the wheel of tarot speaks the law of nature. Ator is an old Latin form of the name of the Egyptian goddess Hathor. And as we know, in the outer circle of the wheel is the manifestation. So the wheel of tarot speaks the law of nature. The law of nature is, how do we create nature? How do we create manifestation? And this wheel tells you how it's done and how you have to be careful when doing it, so you get what you want, not what other people want for you. Finally, the Wheel of Fortune is the tarot symbol of the law of cause and consequence. You've probably figured this out by now. This enables us to be certain of reaping what we have sown. Gee, the law of cause and effect took a whole card, but there it is. So, I would like to say, to be sure, for each of you to check out my blog called The Gates of Light at WordPress for information about the other cards of the tarot deck that I've already covered. I've also included posts about the symbols and colors on that website, because sometimes you forget what the symbols mean and there you are looking at a card. So I do have separate sections, pages on that. And the address is www.gatesoflight.wordpress.com. Thank you for attending this webinar on the Hermit and the Wheel of Fortune. And does anyone have questions?
Let me unmute everyone. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Margot. There's a lot to
I know.
digest.
I know. That's why I'm so glad that we put this up so people can go back and listen to it again, because it's a huge amount of information for 2 little cards.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Margot. This is Anne.
Hi, Anne.
How are you?
Fine. Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, you too. You know, the approach that I take with these teachings here, and you teaching them, is that I think it's easy to say, oh my God, this is so much, I can't, it's just too much to comprehend. And just sitting here listening, myself just says just to relax with it, and what needs to come in will come in, and a couple of things have come in, and there's a couple of things I went, oh wow, okay, that's how that works, because I've already experienced it, but I didn't know what it was or didn't know how to explain it. And I think just to take the approach that this is always going to be unfolding and we don't need to get it all at once, but it comes in bits and pieces as we grow, then we can naturally take in the information, and it's not something that, like going to college where you have to memorize everything.
Yes, don't memorize anything. And you're correct, Anne. That is perfect, because that's how I've approached it. I want you to know that while I'm writing this, things come to me, and I'm like, what a great opportunity. I now am putting together these webinars, and yet sometimes there are parts of the symbols I had no idea how they related to each other until I was putting it together, and I'm going, oh, wow, this is like the card, the Wheel of Fortune, is basically get a grip on your life. You know, I just didn't see it until I got to the end. I'm going, where is this leading? And so it's wonderful. And the symbols support what's being said. It's just like, you know, pulling things apart. It's like a kid with a watch. Okay, let's see how it works, and tears the whole thing apart in little pieces. And then the parent comes in and goes, oh my God, my watch is in pieces. But you learn about things that way. And you're right. Just take your time, learn the little parts you can, and the rest will come to you. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's a great observation. Anyone else?
So next time we meet next month in March, what is the what cards are coming?
Okay, we're going to be doing Justice and the Suspended Man, cards 11 and 12. So that's a great pair. And we're looking at doing the webinars on the first Saturday of each month. So irrelevant of the number of weeks between them. So next would be March 5th. And that's if there's some change where there's a holiday, or I'm out of town, or Cindy's out of town, then we would let everybody know ahead. But if you can put that in your mind, the first Saturday of each month, and that might be helpful to sort of create a rhythm for each of us.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yep, Cindy suggested that, so I concur with her. It's a great idea.
Great. Well, we'll post that soon, and you'll have access to the recording soon. And I really appreciate you all joining today. And thank you, Margot, for making all this available to us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a delight. I'm glad that you're interested, and I am glad that the word of the tarot is getting out a little bit more. It's a great tool for understanding yourself and understanding the dynamics of living day to day. So it's kind of fun. I'm glad you're enjoying it.